one of my dogs basically is a cat.
Mm-hmm.
He hangs out
Self-sufficient?
on top of no.
My
God,
dog
no.
is the same thing.
Never mind.
Yeah, he's the opposite of a cat now.
The house that was fostering him when we picked him up, there's this deck built around a tree in the middle of a backyard. So it's like this big circular deck, and he could fit underneath the deck, and he would steal beers from the porch and run them underneath the deck and put them under the deck, and then he wouldn't come out, and they couldn't reach underneath there to get it.
Hank's Bar and Grill.
Oh, Hank was a bartender.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full goon squad in the house with a very special guest. Really exciting weekend just went down. 4 women in the top 25 in North America. And at the top of that list, in 9th place in North America, I believe, is that correct, is Paige Semenza.
Unofficially.
Unofficially.
We'll wait on the results.
Waiting on results.
Which ones
I
you
did
still
get
waiting
all
on?
of my, I actually got all of my emails yesterday that all of my videos were accepted. So
you could just only move up.
Everything is good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. We like that. Well, first and foremost, Congratulations. It must feel really good to work your ass off for a long time and then end up there on the leaderboard.
Yeah. I thank you. It does feel good. I did well last year. I improved upon last year from 3 spots. So 12 spots on the 12th on the leaderboard last year into 9th. But I think this year I didn't put as much, I don't want to say I didn't put as much mentally into it, but I didn't take it to heart that I finished. Oh my God, I finished 9th. I finished in the top 10. I'm really just putting my eyes set into semifinals, and that's like, I want to put all of it into semifinals and make sure I'm ready to qualify. So I'm taking it for what it is and taking a little bit of a rest right now, and then getting ready to amp it up really hard for the next couple weeks.
So one of the things that happened this weekend, sort of internally here at HQ, and then with some of our remote athletes that I think you would be a really good person to speak about, is those years of leaderboarding for athletes, their early years where they're really just trying to squeak into this qualifier or qualify for regionals, or it could even be the games, but just sort of that stress that is attached to leaderboarding. And even if you are the type of athlete who can come in 9th or 19th or 20th, whatever it is, that there's so much stress associated with going through this weekend and doing all the videos and doing the workouts. And it really just got me thinking about the community at large and how many people probably really put a little bit too much of their worth as a human being and as an athlete into an actual leaderboard. Whereas, the things that people should measure themselves by are, their personal effort, how hard did they stick to what they said they were going to do in the off season, their attitude throughout the entire weekend, how they contribute to their community, the community at large, all these different things. And based on how 2021 went for you and how hard you just worked and, sort of coming around and going through the open and quarterfinals, you strike me as the type of person that doesn't let a specific individual moment or leaderboard sort of define you as an athlete and set you down on the wrong path. So let me know if that ramble question makes sense, but I just feel like you might be the right person to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone from my journey in CrossFit with competing from being 30th on the leaderboard in regionals and them only taking the top 20 to surprisingly making it in that same year to regionals, and then having only gotten higher and higher up on that leaderboard every year. But I think I like the pressure of competing. I think that's why I can excel in certain areas where people seem to let it overwhelm them and kind of crash and burn in that sense. And then putting their eyes too much on the leaderboard of, I was, just I could have done this, I could have done that, instead of, laying it all out there in that one workout that you're doing and moving on to the next one. A lot of talk I had with, one of my clients this week was, again, like, your goal is, yes, to do well, but ultimately your goal should be to give your best effort and be happy with that best effort. And if there's areas to improve upon, let's say you're not, qualifying this year, well, then you bring that into training and into your experiences moving forward. And again, the athlete IQ that we always talk about, is taking those past experiences and just being able to build upon them and build momentum off of them instead of letting them bring you down. So yeah, I definitely, I find myself taking it seriously, but also not putting my full worth into it, right? Like, I am, at the end of the day, happy outside of the sport that I'm in, and my goal is to just give my best effort. And, fortunately, I'm looking at a top score on the leaderboard with that. So it's hard to not be happy.
It's kind of, I think it's important for listeners, because I think there's two ways you can interpret that. It's that, oh, this person is naturally an incredible athlete, and is just like, it's easy for someone to say like, oh, I'm not going to put so much worth into myself on the leaderboard. It's like, that's easy to say as the top 10 fittest woman in North America. I interpret that as, oh, I'm doing I'm also making sure that the things outside the gym are in such a place that it supports my ability to train, to compete at the highest level that I can. Because that's not to say that I'm organizing things outside of the gym, isn't to say that I'm taking time away from training to do this. It's, I am doing the things outside the gym so that when I go to the gym, I'm less concerned about the things that are like, I know that my life outside the gym is taken care of, and that I have kind of the supporting structure. Then we talk about that all the time.
Yeah, exactly that. I make sure that my lifestyle matches what I want to do. Like, what my goal is to make the CrossFit Games, and I have the support system around me that believes in that. But I also make sure that my lifestyle itself matches up with wanting to compete at the highest level, getting enough sleep, making sure I'm eating well, making sure my life is organized in a sense that I feel fulfilled and accomplished outside of the gym. Because when I'm organized and in a good spot outside of the gym, it only transfers inside the gym, and it's just momentum to build off of.
I would say too that organizing your life isn't something you did like in a finger snap. It's something you've taken years to do. I think that's a really important note for listeners as well, because they think that, again, like Hunter said, that you woke up one day and all of a sudden you're ninth fittest woman in North America. That's not really how that went. I don't know if you want to speak to a little bit like how that journey has transpired from being that person who finished 30th in the year where you need to be top 20 to where you are. But I think that type of growth over, we're talking, what's that, like 5 years?
6 years.
6 years. So,
yeah.
So
Yep.
I think that's an important lesson for people to realize, that these things don't happen overnight, but that you've iterated as you go. So I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that, because I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah. I think part of it comes with age. So many people in the sport they're getting younger and younger, and I'm 30. I'd say trying to compete at the highest level, I'm on the older side at this point, where I have more years behind me competing in the individual age group than I do in front of me. But I think, with that comes learning, trial and error, and listening to experts in taking in their advice, and just applying things little by little along the way. Like, back in 2016, I was 6 years ago, I was 25, 24, whatever. And, you don't realize the importance of sleep back then. You don't realize the importance of cooling down. Just as the sport is evolving, like, everybody's level of fitness is evolving, and you need to take advantage of those little, details that really make the biggest changes. And for me, the last, I'd say, Since November, I started working with Tactic Nutrition, and Meredith has just been, this, bug in my ear 3 days a week and making sure she's checking in and helping me add little lifestyle changes that are making a huge difference in my performance and just my overall life. So, things like journaling, cool downs, warm ups, things that you guys, put so much emphasis on, those little things that, build up, make a huge difference. And Drew texted me on, I think it was 2 days ago, and just, said congratulations and whatnot. But my response was, you feel like you're putting in so much work and not really seeing the progress or seeing results from it immediately. But then it just kind of hits a point where it just, peaks and you're just seeing this upward trend happen, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. But at the same time, you're putting in those hours and hours of work day in and day out behind the scenes that nobody sees. And then when you get to showcase it, it's fun. It is a big eye opener.
Compound interest is a pretty amazing thing.
It is. And there's something about, like, each athlete has that week or those couple of weeks somewhere between October and January where it's just like you're slogging through things and things aren't feeling right. And I've been working on this, and is it getting worse? Like, what is happening? So when you get into those moments and you have a tough time taking a step back and seeing the big picture, that's when it can be really challenging for an athlete. And it's one of the questions that you answered for the people at camp when you said like a lot of people will give the advice that, like, oh, you don't feel good today, just take the day off. And your answer was, I just go work out anyways. Like, and there's a piece of that where if an athlete stacks up however many days over the course of an entire off season where they decided not to train, and you decided to train, it's not that hard to figure out, do a little bit of math. And like, that's where, you can really start to like have those victories add up and really have the ability to show it off when you're competing. So I want to go backwards a little bit before we talk about your off season. What was it like for you? So for people listening that don't know, Paige has been to the CrossFit Games multiple times. And then last year, I believe you were 7th or 8th at
Last Chance.
Yep, I was eighth at Atlas Games.
And then you did the Last Chance qualifier. And what's interesting is another one of those, the leaderboard does not define you. The freaking scores from 1st to 10th in that region were like all the same.
Yeah,
It was crazy. Like how stacked 1 through 10 was. And because the bottom half wasn't as stacked, you guys were trading places based on seconds or reps or pounds or whatever it was, in such a way that if you had pulled your placings out, you would be like, oh, executed, great weekend. Like, that's what I wanted to see. Like, top 10 in almost every event. Like, that's how you qualify. You consistent, like that sort of thing. So what I want to know is, how did you process that when it was happening, just in terms of the semifinal itself and Last Chance, and then did that evolve at all over the off season?
Yeah. So just to put this into perspective, it was 8th place on the leaderboard, but if you break it down and you pick one workout and where you could have changed, all I needed was one more snatch in that like 165 range, and that was it. Like,
and
that would have put me in.
That paints the picture of what I'm talking about. It was crazy looking at that leaderboard.
Yeah. Yep. So one snatch, and like after, Ben and I took the time to kind of chill out from semifinals and whatever, like that fueled me so much. But to see the progress of like, all it took was one more snatch at 165, like a weight that I never ever felt consistent at hitting. Like, I'm nailing it for rep on rep in a in a semifinal. So like, it's also an eye opener as far as how far I've come. Right. So, but yeah, like during that weekend, I had Gabe, Caroline, and Austin come down. which was awesome. It was great. Caroline had already qualified, so like the stress was off of her, not me. But I also had Gabe, which I haven't really had him like hands-on for a super serious competition yet. So it was nice to have him here. And, you know, for me, he's kind of like, you know, that dad vibe of like, you know, he's got me covered.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to say much, you know, like he could seriously just stand there and be like, all right, I feel good. I feel comfortable. I'm ready to go.
I always get an extra round in an AMRAP if Gabe's in the room.
Yeah, he has that vibe always.
Always. And like, you know, we can go, like, we might not talk, you know, maybe once a week. And I feel like, you know, we have a good connection, and I don't need to hear from him so often. And we just kind of have that relationship, which I really, really like. But I had him, and then Austin and Caroline and Ben, which, you know, he's been a huge bonus for me, mentally and physically. But them taking care of the stress all weekend long, as far as, you know, laying out the floors, making sure all the standards are clear, making sure my videos are uploaded. But again, it was a semifinal, so everything mattered. Yeah. So for me, it was very stressful. I'm not a huge fan, you know, looking back at the season, open and quarterfinals went so well that I was like, let's take the risk and go online and see what happens. So, you know, looking back at that, I'm glad that all of the semifinals this year are in person. I excel in that kind of, you know, format, and it's just way more fun. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, we took the time to kind of decompress a little bit. And again, one snatch like that's more fuel than anything. So this year, like, I'm not putting all of my stock into quarterfinals, and I'm mentally preparing for semifinals. And that's, you know, just on to the next one and just getting ready to be ready as best as I can.
When we're working through the athlete IQ with athletes or with coaches to then work with their athletes, one of the big themes of the mindset is it always high highs or low lows? And you are showing us both sides of that right now. So thank you for saying congratulations. I came in 9th. It's a good sign, not necessarily my goal. So not like, okay, we're done, we're good, we're all the way up here. And then you don't make it back to the CrossFit Games and you're like, well, I can go find that one snatch. You know what I mean? So I'm already somewhere, you know, near where I want to be, where I need to be, and I've got an off season to train. So I just think when athletes are listening to this and trying to figure out how much of their self-worth, again, as an athlete, as a person, whatever direction you want to take it, is within that leaderboard, it's like, no, there's a lot more information that you can pull out about different things. Could you have tried harder? Could you have had a better attitude? Like, what can I work on now? What, you know, because we always say, like, having a giant weakness especially for athletes that have trained for a longer period of time, is a gift. Because you move the needle. You can keep moving the needle. If you thought you were reaching your peak at everything, then that would actually be pretty stressful. Like, why am I still training? I already kind of did it. So,
right.
The analogy, I think, is just like the workout score. If you just get a workout score and all you go is, my time was 19:15, but you don't take anything else from it, a similar thing is missed. So like being, you know, 9th on the leaderboard is great and all, but like, what did you learn from the weekend? What can you take forward into the rest of your training? Did you realize that, you know, if you had just stepped at the bar 1 second sooner and you hit 165, you had made that, you know, punch that ticket. These are like lessons that can either take you one step closer or one step further away. And, you know, the proper, you know, period to digest that and to say, all right, like, I could say this is like washed up, but I couldn't do that one last snatch, or fuck, I was 1 second away from being able to be where I want, and I'm going to use that moving forward, which I think for a lot of athletes is a tough pill to swallow when you're that close.
Yeah. And I think, you know, another big takeaway that you can say is, even when you do get to a higher level or the highest level and you have something to improve upon and you do improve on it, you're never satisfied. Like you're always going to want more. You're always going to reach for more because you know that your ceiling is just that much higher. So, yeah, like you can have a wheelhouse workout, but for someone who has the perfect execution, you're going to go in there and nitpick because you want to get better.
All right. So, go ahead.
I was going to kind of take it in a slightly different direction. I'm curious, like, so having watched the quarterfinals like in person here over this past weekend, we had a lot of affiliate athletes as well competing in quarterfinals, and it became somewhat apparent. And these athletes are like fighting for just like how well can I do? Hopefully I can improve from last year. We also had we kind of we're putting together a team for team quarterfinals, and they had to do the individual workouts as kind of a tryout, because we're just trying to make it kind of as fair as possible. And it became pretty clear the athletes who played sports versus athletes who have never played like organized team sports. And I know, for listeners, you can touch on it a little bit, but you were a Division I hockey player, so you've played competitive team sports for a long time. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on like the difference between athletes in CrossFit who maybe never had that opportunity. They found CrossFit as something that's like, oh, this is like accessible, I can do it and I can get better at it, versus athletes who have that competitive team sport background. Because all these things that you're talking about, like, it's pretty clear. It's like, yeah, this person has the maturity of somebody who has succeeded and failed individually and on a team, whereas people who don't have that competitive team or even just like athletic background in general don't necessarily know how to compete and like use the one missed snatch as fuel rather than, I'm not worth anything, so to speak. I don't know if you have any like thoughts on that.
I think you can, as far as that goes, you can use your teammates kind of as that crutch. Like when you are feeling down on yourself and like, man, I missed this, I missed that, I should have had this, I should have done that. I think in a team setting, you have those people around you to pick you up and to help you believe in yourself again. I think of someone like Caroline, who I don't think Caroline played any team sports growing up.
She did, like
Just
cheerleading and like some not like to the level you did.
Yeah. But I look at someone like her who needed the support system around her and that belief around her to help her believe in herself. I think that is a big, valuable part of being on a team. And that's kind of a hard question.
I guess, do you take, how much of that did you take, or do you attribute, or how much of your individual success do you attribute to like your experience on, playing team sports and like the maturity that you gained by learning how to lose, maybe is maybe a good way to think of it.
Yeah. I mean, like being on a team sport, especially a sport like hockey, like you find your role on a team. And for me, like it changed from high school to college. So in high school, I was a very finesse player. I was a goal scorer. I got injured one year and it kind of changed my entire playing ability, so to speak. Like I went from that to getting into college and realizing, wow, I'm this gritty athlete. I'm there to stop goals from happening. And I'm there to help make the play happen and not necessarily score the goals. So just keeping that grittiness from that team perspective and realizing that like, okay, my teammates are relying on me for goals not to happen. I need to now rely on myself to make things happen. I think that would be one of the biggest takeaways is like, they're relying on you and you're relying on them. And now I'm relying on myself and I'm relying on my support system behind me as well. But now I have to make it happen.
I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit just for the listeners' sake, because the team sports athlete and the higher level athlete in the wrong hands, in the wrong support system, has the opposite effect. And has the effect of people not being able to believe in themselves and in their abilities because, you know, maybe they had a coach that didn't know what they were doing, or they had the crazy sports parents, or, you know, sort of whatever it is. So I really do think that even with that background, we can tend to see athletes, you can tell which ones were taken care of and were in the right sort of system, and were not told that they had to quit their fall and spring seasons just to train year round for the same thing. And it's like, dude's 12. Why don't you take it down a notch? So for anybody listening that's failed to be able to bring that over, I just think it's important to say one more time that these measurables that we get at games.crossfit.com, the refresh, it's this, you know, we're as coaches on, you know, this continent's leaderboard and then switching and going all over the place. Those numbers have nothing to do, like absolutely nothing to do with your self-worth as a person, as an athlete. Again, it's those intangibles. It's how did you handle yourself? Like when you get done, are you happy with the effort you put in? Like we can talk about strategy. We can figure out how you could have attacked this workout better, but like, did you just break down mid workout and stop trying or something to that effect? So, it's just really after observing some really high level athletes go through it when they didn't need to be, and then listening to some of the affiliate members talk about their experience over the weekend, it's just really been swimming around in my head that like, you just cannot attach who you are and how you feel about yourself to a Excel spreadsheet about fitness. You just can't do it.
The thing that I'm hearing too from this like conversation with the team sport and like where she is now is like the symbiosis between the athlete and like the support staff. Like you learned in college that you were no longer the goal scorer and that you needed to be a good teammate, and that like being a good teammate meant that like you were doing best for your team, which was obviously, you know, if we extrapolate that out, that ends up being you later on, where you need to be a good person around the support staff that you have around you, so that when you need those folks, they're there for you. They're willing to drive from Maine down to Pennsylvania and do the online semifinal with you, or make sure this past weekend that you were able to kind of solely focus upon your execution of what you're getting ready to do that weekend, as opposed to like, should I go pick my dog up, or did I have enough food brought for me, or who's going to take my lines, who's going to film this, film that. So I think that's a really important point, and something I know you've talked about with, you know, Caroline in the past, is like making sure that you are always putting out like your best foot forward into the community, so they're there for you when you need them, because they do want to root for you, but you also have to give them a reason to root for you.
Right. Yeah. And I think part of that, you know, I coach at the gym, and, you know, I do my best to be a super respectful, upbeat coach and give people their best hours. And I think in return, they, just like you said, like give out good vibes, be a good person, and people are going to want to root for you. And, you know, all weekend long, there were 4 of us doing quarterfinals, and, you know, almost 2 of us being, you know, up there in the top of the leaderboard for the top 120. But people wanted to come watch. So like, you know, just putting it out there into our private Facebook group for the gym, like, hey, we're doing this workout at this time. And, you know, 15, 20 people show up, and they want to see you do well. And that's, you know, like you said, a good support system. And it's valuable, and it's essentially don't be an asshole, you know, be a good person. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. And that brings me to sort of another place mentally. Like some people need these, like, sure, you either wrote an article about it or you've at least talked about it a bunch, just need these like pristine, perfect conditions for each workout. Like just, it's a random Wednesday and it's got to be my pull-up bar. It's got to be this barbell. It's got to be all of these things. And we're going to like perfectly curate. It's, you know, it's like a fancy chef making that tiny bite of food for you.
Going there.
When like shit hits the fan regularly, open, quarterfinals, semifinals, games, you know, the weather, your grip rips, you know, just so many different things that could be sort of brought into play. So I think it's interesting that you sort of rally around creating a certain environment around you that's, you know, not perfected to like you're like running over to the thermostat and making sure the temperature is exactly where it needs to be, and if this person's standing in this place or whatever. So I think that sets you up very well to then deal with like all of the different stuff that's going to be thrown at you in person.
Yeah. And like on workout 3, the wall ball workout, we did that. I did that on Saturday after the partner WOD at the gym. And, you know, there's 30 some people in there for partner WOD. And all of a sudden it's freezing cold outside. So inside it is super hot and humid. And the floors, like doing shuttle runs, I'm like, this is not ideal for shuttle runs. Like as soon as you turn, your foot slips right under you. So Kalina, the owner, went and turned the heat up to try to, you know, dry out the floors a little bit. And all of a sudden it's like 70 some degrees in there and you're sweating and, you know, it's just the total change in temperature. But it's like, you kind of have to deal with it and just, you know, this is what you're dealt. This is the workout you're doing. You just have to go in and give it your best. And, you know, you're never going to have a perfect situation. And if you do, like, you just have to execute and fire on all cylinders and make sure that you take advantage of that. Cause that, you know, 0.001%, you know, is the chance of it happening ever.
Yeah. Resiliency is a really big thing to be able to accept and then just honestly not care about, because when you do get the opportunity to show out and everything is perfect, then awesome. Like all those moments of adversity have all led you to realize that, like, honestly, those things don't have the power unless I give them that power. So if I can just say, well, fuck, I guess we crack a door for a little bit and, you know, dry my shoes off with a towel. I'm just going to keep doing this workout. Like, not a big deal. And then when it does you know, work in your favor, you hit home run.
Exactly.
So after seeing you here at HQ for camp and then your scores during quarterfinals, it's very clear that you did move the needle from phase 1 to today. How did you do that? What did you do to continue? Because again, when you are at a very high level, it becomes harder and harder to move the needle.
Yeah. I just am continuing to buy in, following the programming, making sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do, inside and outside of the gym. So, for me, volume is not my best friend, and I know that. So there are a couple weeks where, you know, Gabe and I will pick up the volume, and there's going to be a week where we lower that volume so that my body can recover. And I have been journaling a lot recently. So I'm, you know, staying in tune with my body and my mood, my headspace, and making sure that, you know, if there's a pattern in there that's, you know, putting me down or keeping my performance low, I can just kind of reflect back and see, you know, oh, my headspace has been, you know, groggy, tired, moody, angry, things like that. And I can, you know, go back and reflect and see why. And that's been a huge help. And again, checking in with my nutrition coach, you know, she's been doing a lot more than just my nutrition. But it's been super helpful to have somebody to talk to that has that professional side of it and can give you expert advice. And food has been like, I have upped my food a lot, especially over a weekend like this past weekend. So I'm seeing the difference in making sure I'm eating enough as opposed to not eating enough at all, and making sure that I'm timing things when I need to, as far as like, you know, post workout, getting my proper in. Yeah. And just, again, like those are the things that I know have been moving the needle little by little for me. So it's like, I'm going to continue on doing what's working.
Could I ask you a question, Paige? Are those conversations at first kind of awkward that you had with your nutrition coach?
Oh, for sure.
Because,
go ahead. No, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, like, that's one of the things that we've been talking about somewhat recently with like the athlete IQ and the willingness to have conversations that are like probably something you don't really want to have is like a therapy session at first, but like how valuable that is for your headspace so that, again, you can focus on what matters.
Yeah. So, and again, just a little background, but I know Meredith very well just through CrossFit. So she's someone who, when I reached out, I knew I was going to be comfortable, you know, talking about more personal things. And it wasn't right off the bat that I was, comfortable with it, but she slowly has helped me kind of make some changes in my lifestyle. But, I'm in a relationship with Ben, and, anybody knows that relationships are, a roller coaster sometimes, and you can go through some very, very hard times and some very, very great times. But not too long ago, him and I had, a period of time where we weren't on the same page. We were arguing, we were moody, and him and I had talked, and he's like, these are things that, why don't you just bring them up to Meredith and, get an outside perspective? And he's like, I'm okay with that. If it's going to help you and it's going to help us, like, you kind of have to put yourself out there. And I even, I feel vulnerable talking about it right now, and I'm not really even giving details, but getting to do that and having a longer conversation with Meredith had helped him and I a lot. And mostly, internally had helped me, figure out what I can do to be better in our relationship. And it only makes things overall better. Right. So, yeah, you really have to kind of put yourself out there and talk about things that you might not want to talk about. And for women, it's, you have your menstrual cycle, you have your mood changes. Like, there are a lot of different things that happen, just as, a female. So it's like, you have to know about these things. And there's more research that's, it's becoming more evident as to, the female body and the differences that there are, and how important it is to be in tune with that, personal stuff. So yeah, it was awkward for a little while, but you have one conversation that can be a breakthrough. And I had that with Meredith. So like now it's like, I'm not really afraid to share anything. And I'm more open talking about things with Ben as well. Because again, if we're on the same page, it's only going to help us, and it's going to help me perform better.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote. It's like, there's nothing on the other side of fear, but the fear at first can keep you from doing those things. The analogy in the gym is like your first legless rope climb. The first time you climb to the top of that thing, you're like, am I going to fall to my death and never, see anyone ever again? But once you do it once, it becomes a little bit easier to do that. And again, the hard part is putting yourself out there the first time and being like, well, this is going to be awkward and I might not like it, but if the end result is me feeling better and doing better, then it's worth it.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and hopefully save you a little bit of dough. SharpenTheAxeCode.com is coming off one of our biggest sales of the year, but don't worry, the Misfit Athletics semifinals collection is, dare I say, the best competition collection that we have ever done. From the concept to the actual gear itself, to how excited the athletes are to sort of share the imagery behind it. We really went all in and took a lot of the concepts that we have on this podcast and in our community at large and put them into the collection. All of that is going to start off with a pre-sale. So make sure you are ready to go to sharpentheaxecode.com. You'll know when based on the Misfit Athletics and Sharpen the Axe Instagram. As always, use the code word Keala, Keala. You save 10%. We donate 10% to the foundation.
We're also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co, use the code word MISFIT to save on your order. If you just listen to Paige just now, she's hinting at the type of supplements she's putting in her body and the things that it's done for her season. She hinted at Proper Fuel, kind of up in that game. We've got pre-workout, we've got post-workout. Again, is a complete nutrition solution for your pre and post-workout. Additionally, we also are accepting brand ambassadors. You can head to properfuel.co, use the code word join the pack.
Nope. properfuel.co/join the pack.
No, I'm new to this, but I'm new to this stuff. So again, if you're looking for the best pre and post workout in the game, head to properfuel.co, use the code word MISFIT.
And lastly, if you want to be the 8th fittest woman in North America, tough shit. You can't do it because it belongs to Paige Semenza. But you can scrap for the other spots by joining Comp Block 2 starting today at misfitathletics.com or in the SugarWOD marketplace to start a free 2-week trial. Whether you're gearing up for semifinals or you're looking forward to next year, there are options basically for everyone to make sure that you can customize the program to your needs. Again, misfitathletics.com or the SugarWOD marketplace, free 2-week trial for Comp Block 2. we're back to the show.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that
100%.
connection is what keeps me so interested in this space. Like if it really was just, we joke internally, if it really just was the old 21-15-9, it's not enough for me. But the way that this community and these pursuits sort of set you up for other areas in your life is totally fascinating, because if you want to be the best athlete that you can possibly be, the stuff that you are talking about is mandatory as part of what we're going to work on, where we're going to go, the conversations we're going to have, what are we going to do to uncover these things. And, it could be some of the stuff you're talking about. It could be some of the stuff that, I've worked with a lot of athletes who, again, have been put in the wrong hands previously, that really need to be talked to about, like, if your coach is basically like, if you're not doing well and your coach is like, you're embarrassing me, like, I don't care if you're playing Pee-wee hockey or if you're trying to win the CrossFit Games. That is just the most, like, we got to shut that shit down and let people understand that that's not an issue with you. That is an issue with that, sort of the other person. So I'm still like in love with this pursuit and this community because it is this larger metaphor for life. And we learn so many things here that I think are 10 times as valuable, in those other hours. I always call it with athletes, the 23 hours. If we're going to be all in on this thing, then paying attention to it only when we're in the gym, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I want to go back to the volume thing for a second. We definitely cannot skip over that. So I'm currently working on an article about earning your volume. And at the highest levels, one of the things that needs to take place is a very serious warm-up, a very serious cool down, and then data collection. What was I trying to accomplish in this piece? What went well? What did I learn? All that good stuff. Now, you are the type of person who is buying into these concepts. You are also the type of person that does not go through the motions very often when you're in a training piece. That, to me, explains very explicitly how you could excel at lower volume. Is an athlete that is a volume monster truly warming up the way that they're supposed to, cooling down the way that they're supposed to, journaling about every single thing that they do 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Like, I'm sure there's,
It's a lot of work.
1, 2, 3 people on earth that I might be leaving out, but there's not many. So I really think for people listening, there are definitely physiological reasons. We found this out with Austin. Austin is the opposite of a volume monster. He can make a lot of progress in a fairly short period of time. And a lot of that is a physiological thing. His muscles are kind of crazy. I don't know if people have seen him before, and they burn a lot of energy. He does almost everything so dynamically that it, just sort of makes sense that his gas tank just gets sucked down so quickly.
Yeah.
But there is also, beyond the physiological and the psychological side, just what it takes to actually get something out of the piece. Like, we have so many people who are just so obsessed with volume, and they're going through the motions, and it's like, man, you're like working like so hard, but not working hard at all. Like, it's like, it's this level of dedication.
Harder, not smarter.
Yeah, it's this level of dedication that's got them in the gym sun up to sundown, and like, kudos to you for being that dedicated. But the idea of, in the moment, in the nitty gritty, you're just sort of cruising through, is like, oh, we just ruined all of this.
Yeah. I think people that like volume, they just like to be in the gym all day long. And I am not that person. I like to be in there. Don't get me wrong, I love to be in the gym, but I love to be outside of the gym too. And I actually just had, I think this was 2 weekends ago, we had the deadlift, handstand walk, deadlift, handstand push-up workout. And
Sure,
I think it was on a Saturday. Yeah, I think it was that one. And I I just was getting into training that day, and that was the last thing I was going to do. And I really had to think to myself of like, do I need to do this right now? Am I going to go in with the intention of getting better? And at the time I was like, I don't think I need another piece. I'm going to skip it. And I skipped it, and I felt okay. Like I wasn't like, oh my God, this is the end of the world.
We need that soundbite.
I
I
am
can't
not
believe
getting
you're still
better
alive.
today.
Yeah, how are you still alive?
Did you fall in a black hole? Jesus.
Right? So,
Oh my God, I can't believe you're still here.
and and that's definitely like, that's a learning thing there. But I have learned that with volume comes injury. And if you're not being preventative to those kinds of things, like it's going to catch up to you way, way too hard and way too quick. But so there's that side of it. There's the physical side of it, but there's also the intention side of it, is going into each piece with the intention to get better and to find something in there that you can improve upon. And don't get me wrong, that is a workout where I could easily find intention of getting better at handstand walk, getting better at handstand push-ups. But at the time, like, looking at my full day that day, I was like, this is only gonna, I'm gonna do this to burn calories, and that's it. And that's not my intention. I don't need to burn calories.
I think we've all been obsessed with something in our life to the point where we overdo it a bit. And in the moment, in the first, however long your love affair with this thing lasts, in the first few days, weeks, months, even years, it does feel like the right thing to do to overdo it. And then on the other side of that journey is the throw the papers up in the air, fuck this meme. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And there's a level of maturity attached to, yeah, I do like being in the gym, but if I lock myself in here 12 hours a day, at what point do I throw the papers up in the air? Right? So like, we do get those people. It's exactly what you're saying. They are obsessed with being in the gym, and they're also the exact same people who typically do burn out at X amount of points during the year. And we see it with almost every single athlete who actually sticks this out and doesn't throw the papers up in the air. We see them less and less in the gym than we used to over a period of time. And for the listeners, those people keep getting fitter and fitter and fitter because they're putting all of these separate puzzle pieces together instead of the, like, I don't know, 4-piece puzzle of like train. Oh, that was an easy puzzle to put together.
I had
Nice.
that conversation just this week. I had a couple of semifinalist athletes who qualified previous year, but unfortunately didn't qualify this year. And that was the conversation we had, is that, I know you probably feel like after a day or so of resting, you probably could go back to the gym and just start training again. But, if you ever listen to the highest performers in really any sport, there needs to be those downtimes and those times that get away from those things, so that you have the hunger to go back and do it again at the best of your abilities. So, while I don't have a problem with you going to the gym this week, go there and have fun, or do something you want to
Right.
do, or like, don't go if you don't want to, but like, there's literally no pressure to go and do a 21:15.9. Like, if you want to, go kayaking, go hike, get yourself away from the stress of training. Because again, if you like to exercise, great, go do that. But don't feel like there's some sort of pressure, because there's going to be that time, like you're talking about, somewhere between like October and January, where you're just like, I should really be putting the best foot forward to make the strides I need to make, so I can be ready for this time of the year that you guys just finished. And I could easily work my way out of that by having done too much directly after a competition season.
Yeah. And I think about this week as well. Like, I took Monday completely off. I tried moving around yesterday, and I still felt pretty trashy. And I'm probably going to take another rest day today, just to make sure that my body is getting caught back up to speed. Because I actually, it's a 5 workout weekend. Mine turned into a 7 workout weekend. So I'm a little more beat up. But, it comes with the territory. So, I'll do something more of like a sauna session today, and something, just to mobilize a little bit. But like, I don't feel the need to overdo it and get right back into things. And that's just, again, like you said, it comes with experience, and it comes with knowing that I'm not a volume person. So
how did you learn that? Because like, I see 2 sides to this. There's the athlete who is aspiring to be at a high level, and it's like, I have to do this. Like, I'm not here yet. and it makes like I empathize with that person. It makes sense. Like, oh, I need to do more in order to get better. And it might be like well-intentioned, but there is, like, you know, with every additional thing you do in the gym, the level of things outside the gym need to increase as well, as far as, like, you know, kind of filling the hole back in. So did you go through a phase where you just beat the piss out of yourself every day, and like, and how, like, can you explain like the trajectory a little bit?
Yeah. So, and it was more of like, you have a successful weekend and you're riding that high. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing and not give myself time to chill out and let my body recover from the stress of the weekend. I forget who, it might have been M2 Performance Nutrition, that is either them or Tactic. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But they made a post about one of the greatest chess players ever. And he sat for a 16-hour day playing chess or whatever. All he did was sit there, and he burned over 6,000 calories. And it shows you the amount of stress, like mental stress, that goes into something like that, and a competition and the pressure, and that stress on top of physical stress, you know, like your body needs a break. And I've learned more because of injury that, like, I'm not a volume person. There are times of the year where I know I can pick it up and where I know I need to take it down. So it was a lot of trial and error. And that mostly came with talking with people, talking with Gabe, talking with Meredith, seeing where I'm at, how I'm feeling. So staying in tune with my body was the most important thing. But like you said, it was more of I would get back into things, and 2 weeks later I'd be dealing with a nagging injury, and I'm like, okay, so here I have to rest anyway. It's going to catch up to me.
Yeah, and that's definitely a nod to both remote coaching and making sure that you know how to, if you don't have it, personalize your programming through phase 1 through phase 4. It's your pick 0 to 3. Some athletes, that does need to be the 0.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not a measure of where you're at as an athlete. It's a measure of how you're responding to stimulus. And then when we're in the comp blocks, it's a la carte. So with comp block 2 is starting right now, basically, when this will get published, and every single piece is non-mandatory, and you're told, okay, go pick these things. And athletes need to know what to do there. Like, Gabe and I have strategized for your competition schedule many times in the past, because he's like, listen, I love your idea. I love the whole peaking thing. A lot of these weeks just don't work as well for Paige, as it makes sense to like spread certain things out and have it like be even more there. And to me, that is like if a coach comes to me and says that, it's like, you know, the cartoon birds are flopping around. Like, when you're thoughtful about the individual portion of what it takes to do this for an athlete, you have sort of transcended that first level as a coach. Because that first level as a coach, every time we hear a new idea about how a specific athlete got better, we want to put that into our toolkit and unleash it on another athlete. And it doesn't always work that way. There's, okay, I do have, 7,000 tools in this kit, but then that next level is, which one am I going to pull out and actually use? And one of those tools is mitigating volume, keeping things even versus going up and down. Like, there's a lot of nuance to that, but I just, hearing you say that, it's just great sort of, remote coaching advertisement for, like, those are the things that change. Those are the things that we go in and do and sort of make that adaptation on. And I don't think a lot of athletes realize what it takes to make their program work for them. Because yes, you do follow the programming, but it is, maneuvered in a way that it can work for you specifically. And that's the basis, is literally why I started the company, because I was like, why are all these blogs just say the same thing? Like, how can it be the same program for every person? Like, I don't understand. Yeah. And like, we've gotten a lot better at it. I don't think we were, I don't know what the opposite of perfect is, but that's where we were at in 2012. But we've obviously gotten a lot better at it, and there's, more choices and everything, but it's just something that I think is,
there's also
super important.
Like, that's certainly like the coach athlete kind of connection is important, but all of that is also predicated on the idea that you know yourself well enough, right? Like, so through a period of trial and error, like you can, if you didn't pay attention to it, then you wouldn't know, right? So there's like, in addition to, you don't just get remote coaching and just assume that the coach knows how to do that for you, right? So if you're an athlete listening to this and you're like, oh, like maybe I want to have a remote coach in the future or something like that. Well, you can still be collecting the information now, like you have, where it's like, oh, it turns out I do respond better to low volume. And if you as an athlete, you present that to a coach and you can eliminate that kind of like that learning curve, like, man, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, like I'm learning that too, being a remote coach through Misfit as well, and being fairly new to it. But getting to use some of those experiences in asking those questions to my clients of like, do you respond to volume? Do you, just different questions as far as, their lifestyle and then being in the gym. And I think some can, definitely use a deeper reflection when they're given questions like that. But again, it helps me be a better coach as well, and getting to take these things. And again, this is actually a conversation that I can, take to my clients, after, their quarterfinals, and having a little recap discussion with them. These are questions that, like, moving forward, these are changes that we can possibly make. So this is actually very helpful for me. Thanks.
Good. Yeah, good. So the nerd in me wants to know any nitty gritty. Is there any details? So when I asked the question about how did you move the needle, there are definitely movements that look different in terms of form and capacity. Like, was there any special, like, we're going to go over here a little bit more skill sessions, or are you attributing all of it to GPP?
I think Gabe goes in and changes my sheet, but like, not every day do I look at like my specific SugarWOD track and the MFT track. So sometimes there would be things that are like 100% different.
But you just don't, you don't
like,
check to see like exactly what the difference is. Yeah.
Yeah. Like even Caroline has mentioned to me just in conversation that like some of my stuff is completely different, and I'm not that I'm not paying attention to the blog and what's going on, but
she has
there
to
are
type
days
the
where
blog in every day. So
yeah.
She knows when I write double unders and caps lock.
Yeah. So, but again, I'm kind of staying in my lane and just staying focused on my training for the day. And like, that's my focal point. So, Gabe just has this, like, he is just a super like smart programmer guy when it comes to like knowing me. Like, he just has this thing where like, we could focus on one thing and I'm like, this makes zero sense. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm doing it anyway. I know it's making me better in some capacity. And what, in the way movements have this transference to other movements. So I don't think I've been focusing on machines a lot. Yep. I think the math has been a big point for me. The longer pieces, the rowing, machines will always be something that I think I need to put that extra emphasis on in making adaptations in my Metcons, and, making those the focal point. But again, I have been just following what is written in my sheet, and, there are days where I don't get everything done because I feel like I gave 110% to two things, and I feel like I don't need to do more than that for the day. So yeah, I mean, I took the first, I think it was phase 4 when we first started adding the math. I did that whole cycle on the ski erg, and I felt a huge difference in my upper body, like my muscular endurance and things like that. I think that was super beneficial. But again, I'm just following the programming of what's written for me. And outside of that, I'm doing the preventative rehab, prehab things. Like the overhead squat in the in the quarterfinals, like we don't really do overhead squats by itself. So I was like, I have no idea what I'm going in for. And I was like, I think I'll be happy with 215. I can't remember the last time I back rack jerked something.
Same.
And then I end up putting up, then I end up putting 235. I end up putting 235 up and feeling like I still had a little more room had I had more time, you know? So like, that is cool. Like like you talk about transference of movements, like we barely have overhead squatted yet here we are smashing weights like it's our job, you know? And just taking in cues from the YouTube channel. You know, you guys put a ton of movement tips out there and things like that. So, you know, just I watch them.
Yep.
It's easy enough. I watch them and I
Nice.
apply them to my training. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
You're
welcome.
Ted back
Jesus
there
comes over the mic.
Where did that come from?
Thank
Who just said
you.
thank you? Yeah, I think I thought I knew that was going to be your answer. This is sort of like another like plug here. So we get athletes who, one of the things that I noticed when you were here is your pulling gymnastics capacity and fluidity of movement. You just looked more comfortable. Your capacity was there. And then you could tell when you dropped down, either if you were waiting for another set or whatever, you didn't look super uncomfortable. Like sort of, you know, we tell athletes you break on purpose, not because the workout told you to do so. And, you know, whether it's on Discord or having conversations with athletes, you can tell if somebody struggles with chest to bar pull-ups, bar muscle ups, or a lift. A lot of people just, you know, walk over to the concrete wall and smash their face into it over and over and over, and then look in the mirror and they don't look as pretty and they don't know why. So like to hear you say you're watching the videos for the sort of the technique pieces, potentially you're doing the Maffetone sessions, it's just another nod for athletes out there to buy into the process and do your Metcons, intervals, bitch work, lift, skill, accessory, stuff outside of the gym. That's the type of mentality that's going to move you forward versus like, I'm going to be the best chest to bar pull-upper in the whole world. And then you blink and you missed 19 pieces. That probably would have moved your fitness level up even more.
Yeah. And like you said, like, a lot of the skill pieces that were gymnastics pulling, like the EMOM of 1 minute chest to bar, 1 minute bar muscle ups, you know, and you're alternating, like I intentionally choose those pieces because I know that those are weaknesses for me. And it's the only way I'm going to get better is by putting them in there week after week. So, again, Gabe is aware of that and he knows to keep those things in there. Strict pressing movements, things like that. Like we know those are weaknesses and we know those are things I need to get better at. And as far as the weightlifting goes, it's a strength of mine. And I enjoy to do it. So you kind of have like, you have that one thing that like, I don't love gymnastics pulling. I know I need to do it. I know it's good for me. So like those are kind of like, I would say the hassle pieces for me. And then I have the things that I love. So it's like, you get that one thing that like, okay, work really hard on this, reward yourself with something that you really enjoy doing. And that kind of keeps training, I won't say, you know, less stressful. I'll put it that way. It keeps it enjoyable for me. And, you know, it's me when I can look forward to something each and every day. And that's not to say I don't look forward to getting better.
Yeah.
Right. I just, you know, my hands, you know, they take a beating with all the gymnastics pulling. And I'm like, oh God, I got to go and trim all my calluses again this week. You know, like it's just the silly things like that. But, you know, I'm going to do the things that I know I need to work on.
I got 2 questions. All right, because you said you did 7 workouts this weekend, not 5. I want to know the highlight of the weekend, what you were most like proud of kind of throughout the entire weekend. And then second, not like a low light, but what you learned most this weekend across all 5 tests, maybe 7 tests.
So I did workout 1 twice because it was the first workout I was doing of the weekend and I was doing it kind of,
couldn't imagine.
I kind of did it shortly after the window opened and I was a little overwhelmed as far as like, making sure I was out of class times and making sure, I get my workouts done before, things like that. So my attention span was very small when I was reading the standards, and I completely skipped over the overhead dumbbell walking lunge standard. Like literally one sentence of like, do not press your dumbbells together when you're lunging. And I didn't read that. So I did that one, and then I had to redo it. So I didn't do it till the next day. But I knew I can do that one and still do well on the lift. So then I did the lift. Following after that, I flushed a little bit and then got into the lift and essentially PR'd all of my lifts. Like they talk about, like, this is the one workout where they like, your barbell is 33 pounds because it's a 15 kilogram bar. But when you do the 135 snatches, you can use a 15 kilogram bar. Like it just
Right.
was annoying. So I essentially PR'd all my lifts, but I didn't. Like I matched my clean at 250, which is a highlight. And then I benched 195 and did the overhead squat at 235. So those are some highlights, especially the overhead squat. Like overhead isn't my favorite. It hasn't always been a strength, but it's slowly becoming, way more consistent. I'm putting 230, 235 over my head. Like it's nothing. And I'm like, I don't even know who I am. But I think, workout 2 is probably a highlight for me. The GHD pistols and ring muscle ups, and just seeing a pretty great result on that. And I feel like I went into it with a perfect execution for myself. In hindsight, I think, it's not maybe it is the time to take a risk, but I went 6-4 on all of my muscle ups that workout. And I think, maybe I could have pushed the first set to go for 10 based on how I was feeling, but you get the accumulated effect of 90 GHDs into that last set of 10 muscle ups. And I just really enjoyed that workout and felt smooth in transitions and, wasn't wasting time anywhere, no standing around season. So
Damn right.
Yeah, so that was definitely a highlight. And then what else we have? Workout 3 was absolutely disgusting. I know you guys all hit that one, and that was just a horrendous cardio piece.
I like it.
It was fun in its own
I
way. In hindsight, like looking back at it, I'm like, wow, that actually, that was a fun workout because you're constantly moving. And, I think it shows me that I still need to work on my cardio a bit. It's still, needs some improvement there. I think I could have done better. I stood at the rope a couple times trying to catch my breath. But workout 5, I had like the longest conversation with Gabe after my first attempt on Sunday. So I hit it. I got 346 the first time I did it. And he called me and he's like, he texted me and he's like, looking at that workout, do you think that could be a home run workout for you? And do you think your score is reflective of that? And I was like, he's really like, I could tell he's telling me to try it again. Like I can just tell in that text message. He's like, so I called him and he's like breathing heavy. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm on the treadmill.
That's just Gabe. No, he's just breathing heavy.
He's on the treadmill. And he's like, I didn't want to call you because, I didn't think you'd want to listen to me breathing heavy. And I was like, no, I'd rather talk to you about this in person or on the phone instead of trying to interpret your text. And going into that, he's like, now, if you were at a semifinal and this was the last workout of the weekend, is this a home run for you? And do you think that there's any area of this workout that you could have done better? And he's like, I look at someone like Kenzie who would, instead of holding, 1300 on the rower, she's starting off holding 1500 on the rower. And, kind of hearing that and putting in those self-imposed limitations of like, I'm not a good rower, so I'm not going to do well on that part of this workout, but the rest of it is my jam. Going back into it and doing it a second time was more to show me that I am capable of holding paces that I didn't think I could. And I was able to actually improve on that workout by like 6 seconds, which in looking at the leaderboard, that's 10 points. It wouldn't have changed my
easily.
spot. Yeah, but it was more of the like, had I held 1,500 cals the first time I did it, could I have maintained the same burpee speed and hit the snatches just as well? And, looking back on it now, it's like, yeah, I could definitely hold that high on the rower for a good 15 to 20 calories, shave 10 seconds off of the row, and then maintain a good burpee speed and still be able to power through 10 snatches. So that was more of just like, that was the mental thing that I needed. Like, that was a little bit of a switch in there that I needed. And me hating him for asking that question to start is just him doing his job and being a coach and looking for me to push my ceiling a little bit higher. So, not my best. Well, I don't know. It was my second best score of the weekend or whatever, but either way, like that was a highlight for me, because that was just more of that mental note that I needed to make going into semifinals and going into the next cycle of prep.
Yeah, I think the really important thing there is that you didn't really mention too much about the time difference. It was more the proving to yourself that you had more and you could do that, because like we were kind of saying the entire podcast is that you're not measured by the number that's next to your name. It's just a quantification of how you did for the weekend. But like the proving to yourself that you can go there and do that and then willing to try it again, because that is a conversation that I had with athletes. I'm sure you probably had with athletes, is that, I'd love for you to be able to go and do that workout once, but are you prepared to do it a second time if necessary? And I think this thing that separates the, wheat from the chaff, so to speak, is, are those athletes there? I don't know this expression. Mike, close, just rolled your eyes.
You stole it from me.
Yeah. Are you willing to go there? And
I have celiac disease, so why don't you fucking take it down?
Right, your apples from your, your cider, whatever the hell you want to say. But are you willing to...
Your cabbage from your broccoli.
Yeah. Are you willing to go there when it matters? And if you aren't willing to check that box, do you really want it? And I mean, I think that's a great description for how you went through that. It's like, I was willing to go there because I knew that like I had a little bit more, and fuck it, let's see what happens.
Yeah. It was I wasn't losing anything. I already had a great time put in. And if I failed the second time around to maintain a pace to beat my last score, so be it. You know what I mean? Like I needed to try, and it was either I try now and do it in a 4-minute workout, or do it again in another training piece 2 weeks down the road that Gabe is going to put in there for me to prove to myself that I can row really, really hard. So it's like, it's going to happen either way. He's going to show it to me somehow and reveal it in some sense. But now it's just like, you know what? I'm here now. Try it. Why not?
It's a great attitude to have.
I had an athlete improve a longer workout by 1 second. And he was happy that he did it because of the concept of what if, like a Sunday evening, Monday morning, whatever, like this is going to eat at me. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm first or 60th or 70th on the leaderboard. Like, was that what I had? So by going back in and being like, oh, okay, this just maybe isn't a wheelhouse workout for me. Like I did give it my all. I think that sort of mentality, knowing that sometimes the redo isn't about the leaderboard. It's just about like, was that what I said I was going to do, or something to that effect. Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, I'm in the top 10 on the leaderboard. It was completely unnecessary from that perspective. Like I'm comfortable on the leaderboard no matter what the score was.
Right.
It had no bearing on that. And it wasn't something that I was planning on sharing to the world, through my social media of like, oh, hey, look at me, I did this workout twice. Like, that was more of a thing that I will keep to myself and use that experience when another workout like that pops up.
Right. My favorite cinematic example of how you make it across the entire spectrum with your coach of like, fuck you to like, oh, okay. Is Pai Mei in Kill Bill Volume 2. I mean, if you haven't seen that movie, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. So we'll just throw that out there. But when Beatrix goes to see Pai Mei and has to punch the wall over and over and all that. Like, you guys got to go watch that.
I haven't seen it.
Get the fuck out of here.
Maybe Ted will throw a
Get
clip in
outta
there.
here.
Wait, what? You haven't seen Kill Bill? Have you
No.
seen number 1?
No.
Number 1's fun. Oh my goodness.
Nice.
You got homework tonight.
Solidarity, Paige. Thanks.
You got homework tonight, Hunter.
Okay, so we're on to final thoughts. Paige, you get to go last. I don't know. One of you two has to go first.
I'll go
sure.
first. I think, like, for kind of consolidating some of the information for the listener, this is going to sound. I'll wrap it back around here, but in a lot of ways, becoming a CrossFit Games athlete isn't that hard.
Whoa. Really?
Because
Can I go?
because it's very hard, but it's very difficult. My point is that we've listened and really even kind of going back to the last podcast with Luca, there are a lot of parallels I'm listening to between you and Luca. But we've laid out so many of the check boxes that need to be hit in order to compete at the highest level, and the majority of them don't have to do with training. There's obviously the element of, like, we need a program that tackles energy systems, the GPP, the variance, everything that we put into the program. But the execution of that program is like, that's just a small fraction of what's necessary. You going in and talking about, oh, I went in and I had to adjust my nutrition, and that actually turned into a relationship with my nutritionist that allowed me to talk about things that, maybe I would like be looking at a therapist to talk about, like that sort of thing. Having those relationships, making sure that you have the supporting structure at home, and you're doing the things at home that make the people around you and the people at the gym around you want to support you. We're talking about sleep. We're talking about the experience of, like, redoing a workout, not because I wanted to move up the leaderboard, but because maybe I did have a little bit more in the tank. There are so many little things that we've talked about that a lot of athletes just aren't willing to do, and they wonder why they aren't getting the progress that they want. And it's really, in a lot of ways, it's really the doing the workout. And I think this is a big reason that there are so many athletes out there who are kind of subscribe to the volume monster style of training. It's like, well, if I check all of these boxes, how can I not get to where I want to go? When it's like, yeah, man, that's a lot of boxes in one single silo out of 10 that you need to be constantly checking in on. And if you're only, worried about the stuff in the gym, you're missing so much of the other stuff. And all of that other stuff has been talked about by you, by Luca, by our athletes. So that's what I'm saying, in the sense that it's easy because all of those answers are out there in a way. It's up to the athlete to accept kind of responsibility for saying, turns out I don't actually need to do this 10-minute AMRAP. It would be better for me to focus on my recovery. Or turns out I'm an athlete who responds better to lower volume. How can I have my coach, or how can I manipulate my training myself in order to reflect that? And then what am I going to do with the extra time that I don't need to be spending in the gym in order to move the needle when it comes time for quarterfinals? So I think, just for the listener, kind of reflecting on all the things that were talked about, a small portion of which was the actual nuts and bolts of the 21-15 nines, and really kind of reassess, especially now that the statistical majority of people's season is over. It's like, now's the time to reflect on those things. What did you do? What could you have done if you had this conversation with yourself last year and actually implemented the changes that we just talked about? Where would you be? Where would you be right now? Maybe you would be thinking about semifinals prep if you had taken those things seriously.
Hunter just took all the final thoughts anyone could have. So
Yep, sorry.
Yeah.
Sucks.
The thing I was going to kind of wrap this up with in my portion here is just the maturity element, and the the thing I recognize with you and Luca is just that the ability to kind of look yourself in the mirror and to find as many different variables as possible and to work your way through them. Because again, you didn't, like you said, you didn't start there realizing that you were under fueling, you were overtraining, you were maybe not having the relationships you needed to have with the people around you to get yourself there. So, before you make this crazy daunting list, try to pick the easiest thing that you think you can make a big change on. If you're not sleeping, you're not in bed 10 hours a night or 9 hours a night, whatever you need for your training level, like start there. If that's checked off, great. Maybe you're not spending enough time journaling after your workouts. You're not learning from your training pieces enough. Or maybe you spend selfishly like hogging the best rower and the best pull-up bar in the gym. And maybe you should say, hey, you take it today so that you can like bring friends into the fold. So that those days that you're in there in the gym, either, in the heat of the summer or on those really cold, dark days in the winter, you got a friend to train with. I think that's a really important like note out there, is that maturity comes through experience, and that you should try to pick up on little things at a time. And as you iterate through this, you become the body of work that you kind of talked to today, where now there was, I can't even tell you how many things are on that list, but so many different things that have now helped kind of amalgamate the athlete that you are now.
So I don't feel bad stealing Hunter's idea from today's podcast, because what I'm going to talk about, I stole from him in the first place.
Nice.
We had the Athlete IQ podcast and we talked about maturity, and a lot of it was very ethereal. It's not on the elemental chart. It's a wazi, it's a woozy.
Hasn't landed.
Has not landed. And in true Hunter fashion, he put we came back down to earth, and he talked about how over the course of any given day, week, month, year, you are presented with so many tiny decisions where you can make the one that's going to help you or hurt you or be a bit indifferent. And that's how he measures someone's maturity meter, is you continue to make these tiny decisions. So it isn't just this like massive effort to be this like stoic stalwart of a human being. It's as I make my way through a day or any given period of time, and I just, like he said, with the silos or the check boxes or whatever it is, really tiny pieces. Like, am I going to warm up for this? I don't have enough food with me here. Am I just going to eat less, or am I going to go find more? Like, there's way too many examples that I could come up with. And I think that's the concept behind it, is if you take this massive macro idea of being mature as an athlete and as a person, and then narrow it down to just making good decisions regularly, that's how you can build yourself up into being that person and sort of have that happen. And that is a connection where I think, again, anytime we interview on this show, the aim is to both educate and inspire. And I think you talking about those things on your own and then sort of buttoning it up at the end is how we can potentially get some listeners to like truly buy into a pretty big concept.
I'll take this in two ways. The first one is kind of reiterating what you guys are saying, but as far as making the CrossFit Games is easy, right? Like the things that you need to change or the lifestyle changes that you need to make are easy in a sense that they are very simple things to do. They're just very hard to get started on, right? So like
Simple, not
it's
easy.
it's just putting the emphasis and the importance on the simple things that help you move the needle. And that's super, super valuable. Like, people are like, we don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do this. I put an emphasis on sleep. I put an emphasis on what I eat. It's those are the things that will make you a better athlete. And then kind of my second wrap up on this is, Ben and I share a quote of the day every morning. We still do that. And one from Monday.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Ben gets very philosophical with these.
I'm even more
but
excited
the one
now.
from the one from yesterday was avoid popularity. It has many snares and no real benefit, from William Penn. And, Ben elaborates on it, but ultimately what he's saying is always be yourself and others will love you for who you are and not who you are trying to be. And again, going back to your self-worth, your self-worth isn't in the leaderboard. It's not in your social media. It's in the relationships that you build around you, and having the people that you care about. And that's a trait that we value in each other. And is a reason I think that, is a reason that we work so well. And, that's again important as far as leaderboarding and putting your, it's not the end of the world if you are last on a leaderboard. It's about the effort that you put in, and it's about, making yourself proud and the people around you proud.
A damn good quote.
Well, first of all, tell Ben I said that's what's up. And second of all, I fucking dare anybody else to bring a podcast full circle better than that, from where we started to where we finished. And that's when we that's when we roll into that outro. Paige, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
and
guys.
your experiences and your wisdom. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure the rest of the community does as well. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast, and thank you to our show sponsors. You can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on any and all orders. And if you would like to be a Proper Fuel brand ambassador, you can head to properfuel.co/join the pack to apply. sharpentheaxeco.com. We are rolling out of spring cleaning. Good luck now, but you can go back and use the code word Keala, Keala, or the code Paige, Paige, to save 10% and donate 10% to the Paige Semenza goes to the CrossFit Games Foundation.
Let's go.
And last but not least, Comp Block 2, right? We're starting today. We are starting today on a brand new block of programming. We are launching into a la carte mode, where you can really dig into what you are trying to get better at. You're going to be able to do that in Comp Block 2. You're going to be able to do that in Comp Block 3. And you are going to be a whole new animal going into phase 1, as opposed to, I'm a triathlete this summer, I'm a weightlifter this summer. You all know how we feel about that.
I'm a gymnast, actually.
MisfitAthletics.com or the SugarWOD marketplace. Boom. See you next week.